Okay, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be checking out a distribution which has made quite a few appearances on the channel but with different desktop environments and window managers, and that is PayXOS, which is an Arch-based distribution. So what we're going to be doing today is checking out one of their new window managers which is currently in beta, but it's a window manager I've never tried before, which is River. So River is a dynamic tiling Wayland compositor written 90% in Zig. It is simple, supports scriptable configuration, and is currently one of the fastest growing tiling and Wayland compositors based on WL roots. So some of the standout features of PayXOS are its customized environment. So their default version uses XFCE, which we've checked out on the channel before. Very nice looking distribution. It's beautiful yet secure, so it doesn't only look good, it is tied with apps that will help you secure your data and privacy. You can sandbox your applications, do anonymous surfing, among many other things, and Fish is your default shell. So for your apps and packages, Pacman is of course going to be your default command line interface package manager, along with Yay as an alternative. For the GUI, we are using the Pamac manager and Bau, but that may vary from one desktop flavor to the other. Now the file size for the River's ISO weighs in at just under 2 gig, and with that out of the way, let's jump into the live environment and get this installed. Right, so here we are. It's all looking very nice, but we'll get into all of that once we are fully installed. Now, as always, we are going to be installing this natively, but if you like to skip the installation parts of these videos, there'll be a timestamp down below, which will take you straight to the installed desktop. Okay, so we are, of course, using Calamaris to get this installed. So let's first up choose our language and go to the next step. Europe London is the place to be, and next. So for keyboard layout, of course, I am using UK, and we're just going to test it out to make sure the keyboard is all working as it should. And then we'll go to the next step. Right, so I have been told by the dev that there's currently an issue with the sort of hibernation at the moment, and I do like to test out hibernation. So for today, we are going to skip that, but I have been told this will all be fixed in a stable edition. So for now, we're just going to drop down to the Kingston SSD, do an erase disk. We're going to stick with BTRFS because I do believe they still have auto snapshotting features when you do an update, but we're just going to go ahead and just do a swap to a file for this time. Usually, like I said, we would go for swap with Hibernate. So that's going to give us two partitions, one for our EFI, and then the rest is all going to be assigned to our root partition with BTRFS as our file system. Next, and it's now time to create our user. So Tyler, let's call this PC Riverboy. There we go, living the dream. We're going to type in our password. Now we are going to use the same password for the administrator account, but we won't log in automatically. That way we can see what our login screen looks like when we first start up, so we can go to the next step. Okay, so that is everything. So we can go ahead and press install now, and here's where I'll pause the video and come back once it's finished. And there we go. So the installation has completed without any issues whatsoever and was done in around about 5 minutes on my machine. With that out of the way, let's reboot and check out our freshly installed PayXOS with the River window manager. Right, so here we are with our first look at the login screen. Actually looks very tasty. So we've got our user accounts here. We've got a nice little clock and date widget here. And then we've got some power buttons here. And this little toggle will probably be for different sort of sessions that you have. As you can see here, we only have the one, which is of course River or Wayland. So let's go ahead and log in. Right, so the first time you start up, we're going to be greeted with the PayXOS quick guide. This is the second half of the short guide that you saw in the live environment. So in the live environment, all it really sort of showed you how to do is basically quit that window and get into the installer. Please note that in key bindings, the mod is your Windows key or your left super key. Next up, we have the application launcher. So the application launcher is Wofi, and the key binding is mod and D. So left super or your Windows key and D will then go ahead and open up your sort of application launcher if you like. Next up, we have the panel. So in the current version of River, I've used Waybar as the default panel, which only works with Wayland. You can change the design from here, and then it's going to be config Waybar River. And as you can see, by default, it's at the bottom. I'll usually prefer it at the top, but that's not too much to worry about. It's quite an easy change. So let's go to the next step. Power menu. So again, the power menu is going to be using Wofi. This will appear at the center of your screen and can be launched using either the key binding or from the panel. So the key binding is going to be your mod, shift and E. So again, your left super, shift and E. Let's try that again. There we go. And again, using Wofi, that's going to open up in the central part of your screen. And then we can do things like lock, log out, suspend, reboot and shut down. Now we should also be able to just press this arrow, I imagine, to then go ahead and open it up as well. I do wish that when you clicked it, it sort of like would dismiss it once it was open, but we won't worry about that. Let's get out of that. Okay, next up, we have the default applications. So the default terminal used is Anacritty. You can change it if you wish to. Key binding is mod plus enter. We won't worry about that for now. It's pretty standard terminal sort of shortcuts for sort of tiling window managers. The default browser is Firefox, and that's going to be bound to mod, shift and F. Let's quickly test that out. So mod, shift and F. And now that should go ahead and open up Firefox. It might take a couple of seconds. And there we go. So that's opened up Firefox. It took a little while, longer than I would have imagined, but I hope that's just the first time it's run it. And now it should be all good to go. So we're just going to close this for now. So we're going to go left super and Q, I imagine. And then we also have key bindings for the default email client, which is Bluemail. And that appears to be across all of their versions that I've checked out so far. And then the default file manager is PCMan FMQT. Okay, and then the mod shift and D is the key binding for that one. We'll check that out in a moment anyway. Now notifications, we are using Dunst. We'll handle the notifications. The color of any notification will vary depending upon the urgency level shown below. So you've got red for critical or important, black for normal and gray for low. Right click on a notification pop-up to close it. Okay, and I think we've just got one more to go. And then we have additional key bindings. So key bindings are very important in a tiling window manager. The very best way to learn is to get familiarized with them by yourself. River's configuration can be found, and this is where they're going to store the configuration for River. So it's going to be in your config, River, and then init. Okay. Moreover, to stop this app from popping up on every session, comment out the welcome app in the auto start section in the init file. So we'll get into that in just a moment as well. So I think that is everything. So here is basically like your configuration file for the River window manager. And we've only popped this open to go ahead and do what it tells us to do here with the welcome app. So we're just going to use Control F to find, type in welcome app, and that'll take you straight to it. Now all we're going to do is just chuck a little hash in before that. Or we could just delete the line entirely. Okay, my keyboard is being weird. I don't think it set the correct keyboard for us. So what we'll do is we'll just copy and paste this over for now, and I'll sort the keyboard layout in just a moment. Okay, boom. So that will no longer appear when we first start up. So we can now save this and then we can get out of it. So let's go to save. Okay, that should be saved. So let's use left super and Q to quit out. And now we can quit out of that as well. Now let's go back and then we'll also quit that. Now before we start taking a look around, it appears we've got a nice lot of updates here. I do like the way they've set up the bar with the 3 sections here with nice little modules for the updates there, exactly telling you how many are there as well. That's very cool. So let's go ahead and open that. So clicking that will then open up the terminal, and then that'll go through the sort of update commands for you. Okay, so quite a bit to go, so I'll pause the video here and then come back once that's finished. Okay, so we're now all up to date, and here is a nice little pop-up notification letting us know we are all good to go. Now we're just going to do a quick reboot so we can see how much RAM we're using on a fresh boot before we make any changes to our system. But before we do that, I thought we'd pause at the grub screen because they do include the sort of auto snapshotting features with grub as well. So as you can see, we have a few options here, but at the very bottom we have the OS snapshots. And if we hit enter, you can see that we have some nice BTRFS snapshots there as well that we can dip in and out of, which is very cool. And that will also mean you should be able to access them through the GUI time shift as well, but we'll check all that out once we are into the desktop. Let's go. And now we're back, you can notice that we have an entirely new and fresh wallpaper. So it's going to cycle through them, which is very nice. Now, let's go ahead and open up a terminal. Now I do believe HTOP is installed out of the box, and we can just quickly see how much RAM we're using on a fresh boot. So up top, we can see that it's not the lightest window manager ever, but there's a lot going on, and they do include a lot of sort of configs and applications out of the box. That's not too bad, and we still are in beta at the moment. And then we can see the sort file it's giving us is quite a small sort file, really, at under a gig at 512, but that's not too much to worry about. And now by default, whenever you open up a fresh terminal, you get this nice little output here telling you your OS, the kernel that we are currently using, which is 5.17.1. the window manager of River, and of course our shell is Fish, much like all of their versions across their sort of suite of different desktops and window managers. And then we get some uptime and packages as well. So actually, that's not too bad on the packages. So we'll see if it sort of fills all the gaps and it's got everything we need on a fresh boot, on a sort of fresh installation, or if we need to go ahead and install a whole lot of things. But otherwise, let's start taking a look around. Okay, so you might notice we have once again got a new wallpaper. Again, very nice wallpaper. They always have good selections of different sort of nice artistic wallpapers. But you will notice that we've moved our bar from the bottom to the top. Just a personal kind of preference. I much prefer having it there. And it's super simple to do. So go into your config river sort of file here, and under position, it will say bottom by default, and we've just swapped that out for top. Okay, let's actually start getting into it then. So I don't think a right click on our desktop will do anything. So we've got all of our buttons here. So again, that's just going to open up your sort of application menu like so, which is of course the same as when you do left super and D. We then have some different buttons here. So I'm going to imagine that's probably a screenshotter. Let's have a look. So we'll click that, set file name .png. Let's just type in test, hit enter. Okay, let's hit enter again. Space maybe? Or is it going to be a drag and drop? Okay, cool. That's quite nice to have it there, and then again we get the nice little screen notification there, and then we just click it to dismiss it. Okay, that's quite handy to have it right there in our sort of central panel there. We then have what looks to be an image sort of icon, so I'm going to imagine. Oh, okay, I was wrong. I thought that was going to open up like an image sort of gallery application, but instead it's going to very quickly cycle through the sort of wallpapers that they have out of the box. That's really cool, actually. A nice little simple thing to include, just to give you an instant sort of change of how your desktop looks with just a simple click. Okay, no, I really like that. Let's get to one a little less busy. We'll leave it on that for now. And then of course we have our workspace switching or tags for your virtual desktops. And you can of course just click onto them, but there's a nice little animation as well when we do that. So when it changes the kind of indicator, so your focus tag will be a nice white. And then when you do that, it sort of animates it ever so slightly and bounces over. That does look quite nice. And of course, using our left super and numbers, we can do that as well. And then once more, we have our power button. And what we're going to do is quickly have a look at the lock screen. So we're just going to hit enter to go straight into the lock screen. And it's going to go into a nice sort of wallpaper. There's not really going to be any indication of what you need to do on the screen, but it's quite a common sort of lock screen. You're just going to want to go ahead and type in your password. You'll get that indicator in the middle. Hit enter, and then you'll be back into it. So very nice, simple sort of lock screen there. Okay, so applications wise, let's see what we've got out of the box. So we're going to go left super and D once more, and we're just going to sort of scroll through it ever so slightly like so. So we've got Alacrity, which is of course our terminal, and there's a lot you can do with Alacrity really. Quite a sort of default kind of config here, but there is a lot you can do to sort of jazz things up. And you'll notice for the colors, we appear to have a sort of a nice light sort of whitish border for the focus window, and then when we open up another one, you can notice that the window will switch between a sort of a light blue as well. All of them colors are very easily changed. Okay, let's keep it moving. So then we have our ZeroConf browser, Bluetooth managers and adapters. We have the SSH and VNC server browsers, ClamTK, which is a sort of a virus application, I do believe. There we go. So this is a virus scanner. Let's keep it moving. And then of course it will sort of populate the top of your list with the sort of most recently used applications, because as you can see, ClamTK is now near the top. Okay, we then have CMake, Managed Printing, FireJail. So this is the kind of cool thing it does with sandboxing applications. So let's have a look. FireJail reduces the risk of security breaches by restricting the running environment of untrusted applications using the latest Linux kernel sandboxing technology. So step one, choose an application. So choose an application from the menus below. So we've got network, and that'll be Firefox. We then have sound, so that's going to be Pavu Control and Pulse Audio. And then system, we have Xkill and Xrefresh, and in viewers, we have eVint. So let's quickly just use eVints for this sort of demonstration. So we're going to go ahead and click that, press continue. Now FireJail reduces the security. Yep. We know all of this. So we have debugging. So we can either monitoring and statistics, trace file system, and enable sandbox debugging. Press done to start this sandbox. So that should go ahead and open up the application now in its own little sandbox. And there we go. That is the eVints document viewer. So a very cool, handy little application to go ahead and sort of isolate things in their own little sandbox. Very cool. Right, so what else have we got? So we have Fire Tools, we have Fish, which is of course our shell, we have HTOP, and we have Customize Look and Feel. They usually use sort of LX appearance for these kind of things. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it does appear to be, and we do actually appear to have quite a few different themes included. So let's have a little quick look at what the defaults are. So the default is going to be Kimmy Dark with the icon theme set as star. That kind of reminds me of like if you've ever used Samsung Dex on an Android phone, it kind of looks a bit like those icons when you're in a desktop. Let's go ahead and open up our file manager and we can show you what the folders look like when they're inside your file manager. I've already forgotten what our file manager keyboard shortcut is, so we'll just go ahead and do that. Okay, so these are your sort of files here, so quite nice, and it sort of shadows it over when you hover over. Pretty decent, and I do actually quite like this Kimmy Dark theme as well. So let's close that off and then go back. And let's see what else we've got. So for widgets, let's have a look. We have Arc Blackest, which is very black. We have Dracula, and then we have standard Kimmy, it looks very old school. Kimmy Dark, Kimmy V20. We have Cryptum. We have Lion, which is one of my favourites and sort of KDE. It looks a bit interesting here. We then have Noosa Dark, Nordis Darker. We won't go through all of these, and then we have all of the Orcus themes here. And then we also have Quagor, or however you say that. We have Rayleigh, Sweet Mars XFCE. We then have Sweet Mars V40, and then we have some more sort of white kind of themes here, and then we have Deep in Dark. So we will leave it on the Kimmy Dark because I think that sort of fits it best. And now let's go over to icon themes and see if there's any other icons that we might want to use. So this looks a bit like Taylor Circle icons here. Although we do have the Taylor Circle purples there, which has got more of the square for the file sort of folder view. And then we also have the matching icon theming for the white themes as well. Okay, not too bad at all. Okay, let's see what else we've got. So we've got ARC, we've got Pulse Audio Volume Control, we have Qt5 Settings, QT-VR4 Test and Video Capture Utility. We have Print Settings, and then we have Time Shift, which is for your BTRFS snapshots. Now, we should have a few already, like we saw in the grub screen, because when it done the update, like I said, it will take them automatically, which means if there's ever any issues, you can roll back and do what you need to do to get back to sort of a normal working order. So we'll leave that on all of the defaults for now. And then there you go, we have the free snapshots that we did see beforehand. And as you can see in comments, auto snapshot before upgrade. So a very handy sort of feature to have on your actual Arch Linux desktops. Right, so what else have we got? We've got the Welcome Center, we've got Electron, we have CodeOSS, which is the sort of text editor we've been using to check out things like config files and all of that good stuff. And this will stay on your screen no matter where you're going until you sort of open application or dismiss it. So it's actually quite cool actually to see what you've got open. I don't mind that idea. Okay, what else have we got? So we have CodeOSS, Electron 13, we have the document viewer. We have Firefox as our default web browser. We've got the gparted partition editor. We have Cavantum. We have application, which is Bau. And then we also have Blue Mail, which is the desktop email client, which I've only really used sort of significantly on Android devices, but I have checked out on previous versions of PayX OS. Right. Now, what I want to do then, before we get into Bau, because that's a sort of formatted package manager GUI, if you like. So I'm going to imagine we are going to have some things like Snap and Flatpak installed out of the box. Let's just take a quick look. So if we open up a terminal and type in Flatpak, so it's already auto-completed it for us. So it does indeed appear that we do have Flatpak installed out of the box. And now let's try it with Snap. So we'll go Snap List. So again, we don't have any snaps installed, but it is sort of included out of the box, like I imagine with Bau, because it sort of grabs from all of them sort of places. So let's close that off. Go into Bau, like so. I'm glad he mentioned how it's actually pronounced in the website, because I always say it wrong. Right, so it's now refreshing apps, and here we are. So it's found us some suggestions. It does appear that the sort of geometry or spacing is a bit off with this particular window, because as you can see, the gap's not there. It's going all the way to the edge. Hopefully they sort of configure that properly out of the box when the stable version comes around. But as you can see from suggested apps here, it's going to be grabbing them from all different places of different types. So you can see here we've got FlatHub. We'll also have some web apps, and we also have app images, which is very cool. There isn't any snap support though. I did think that that would be included, but we won't worry about that for the moment. Now, as far as learning the different keyboard shortcuts to kind of manipulate your desktop and your different application windows, it's best to sort of, once you're comfortable with things, go into your sort of config file and start to learn things like so. But for new users out there, you can go straight onto their website, and then they have listed all of the key bindings for all of their different window managers, which makes it very easy for a sort of new beginner to get into it of a tiling window manager. So let's have a quick look at what we've got. So we know that we can focus with J and K, so very standard stuff to change the focus window. We then have swap next. So what that should do is you should be able to go ahead and open up a new application window. So we've opened up a terminal and using left, super, shift and J. So if we go ahead and do that now, that should go ahead and swap the windows around like so. Very handy. And then we can use decrease tile ratio and increase tile ratio. So whatever window you've got focused, if you like, that's going to go ahead and apply it to that window. So to decrease tile ratio, we're going to use super and H. And then to increase it, we're going to use super and L. And again, what we can then do is change it to sort of any sort of spacing we like. And then we can use the focus next or swap next to then swap it around using the same sizing that we are currently on. So again, we can go left, super, shift and J. And now that's going to make that the more sort of larger window there. So very handy once you learn how to use these things and sort of get really productive with the different key bindings. And then we've also got things like change workspaces, and then again, super simple stuff to move a window to a different workspace or tag. It's just going to be a left super, shift, and then the number of workspaces. So let's say we wanted to go onto workspace 4. We would do that, and then that would hit over that application, which you can now see is on workspace 4. So again, once you learn how to use all these things, are very sort of quick to work on, very cool indeed. What else have we got? We then have toggle floating, so we can go into sort of floating mode as opposed to tiling. Toggle full screen, so that's going to be super and F. So that's going to basically do what F11 would do. So we're going to go super and F, and then that's going to full screen your application. And it will be exactly the same as what happens. As you can see there, that was me pressing F11 that time. We then have some moving. So as you can see this window, we can actually move it around a little bit. So let's have a look. So use super Alt and H to move it left. So let's go super Alt H. As you can see, we've now shifted the position of that. We probably could have done that with the Batu application to squeeze it all back into frame as well. And now if we press J, we can get it to a different position. So that was down. So let's press K to go back up. So as you can see, you can manipulate windows in all different ways like so. And then we have all of the other resizing and good stuff like that too. And before we wrap things up, we're just jumping over onto the laptop. Don't worry, we haven't bothered installing it. We're just going to do it into a live environment. So I just want to check out if there's any additional features that are laptop specific, like battery indicators, and make sure the brightness and all of that good stuff is working. And as you can see here at the bottom of the screen, we do have a few additional indicators in our bottom bar. So we've got one here, which is going to be for your brightness. And then we also have a battery indicator here. And if you click that as well, it will sort of go from a percentage to a remaining time. So that's very cool. And I have tested it out with the sort of keyboard shortcuts, and that also works as well. Right, so I think that is where I'm going to wrap up with my first look of the River Window Manager, this time on PayXOS. And all in all, I've actually really enjoyed it. So it's not as often that we check out sort of cool new window managers as much as we do the full desktop environments on this channel. But when I do, I always have quite a lot of fun, especially when there's a distribution that's gone out of their way to make it a very nice, fun and easy to use out of the box experience. And that is something that I think PayXOS really does shine at. Every kind of window manager or desktop that I've tried out for them has always got nice, sane and good looking out of the box default. So it's definitely worth checking those guys out. They do a good job with their different window managers and desktops. Now, as I said, it's currently in beta. I do believe from talking to the dev, we've got around about a month or so until the stable release is out. So if you're going to go ahead and try this out, do bear in mind there will be some issues here and there you run into, one of the notable ones being the problem with hibernation. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And if you've really enjoyed it, you can consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, join the Discord. There'll be a link in the description and in the pinned comment. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.